How come I don't get the cool red headphones?
Those ones sound better, actually. All right, we're about to start this.
Bonjour Anishinaabe. Welcome to Red Mic Podcast.
Hey, Buju Anishinaabe, Anamikiani Indígena Kaz, Nemando Dim, Misquagami Wizaga Igun Dunjaba. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. After a long hiatus, Red Mic Podcast is back. And today, we have a very special guest in the house. We in his house right now. Secretary of the Red Lake Nation, Sam Strong. What's up, bro?
Bonjour and miigwech for having me on the podcast.
For sure. Before we get into it, I want to give a little background on yourself. What led up to you becoming Secretary of the Tribe?
Yeah, well, bonjour, bimose gnu Indigenous cause, makwantu dem, Misquagami Gunning and Donjaba. My name is Sam Strong, Secretary of the Tribe. I was elected in 2018, have 2 years under my belt, and really excited to serve the Red Lake Nation. It's an honor. It's an honor to be a part of our great history here. And it just was a lot of things led up to this. I would say my whole life led up to this, not only this moment, but to this time in my life. I graduated from Cornell University in 2007. I came back and worked for the tribe. Ever since then, I was Economic Development Director up until the time I was elected Secretary. And so I had a chance to work with the tribal government for that entire time, gained some experience, saw some of the things that were happening in our community, and really wanted to be a part of the change. Saw some things that needed to be changed, and very fortunate to have been elected by the Red Lake people. Very proud of that, and this opportunity has really opened my eyes to a lot, and opened my eyes to an opportunity for us to really bring our tribe to the next level and allow our people to not only survive, but to thrive.
Definitely. So today, kind of a crazy and interesting day. You, amongst other tribal council members, received the vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine.
Yeah, definitely. So, we've been talking about this for a couple weeks. There's a lot of hesitancy within the American people, within our tribe, about a vaccine, being that it's something new and it was pulled together at warp speed. I think there was, some reluctancy to take the vaccine. And so as a tribal government, I really believe in leading by example. As you are well aware, I've been wearing a mask ever since it was determined to be the best path for stopping the spread of COVID. Daily I wear masks, I social distance, limit my travel, limit my opportunities to, get COVID and pass it on. Being a young man, I'm very confident in my ability to fight COVID personally. However, it's deeper than me. I'm a part of this nation. I have a father that has health conditions that would complicate any kind of COVID infection, as well as there's many other elders and people within our community that very much could have a hard time dealing with COVID. And so it's about protecting our people. It's about setting a precedent for how to deal with this crisis. And so when we were given the opportunity to take the vaccine and show our people that not only will it not harm you, but it's going to help all of us. And more importantly than anything, it's going to save our elders. Sadly, we have lost some of our elders, and there's nothing that we can do to bring them back. That's the sad truth. But what we can do is prevent more deaths from happening. We can prevent more tragedy from happening, and so if I can be a part of showing our people that taking the vaccine is okay, that taking the vaccine is the right thing to do, and that medically, it's really the only path we have forward. We see the cases rising in Beltrami County. We see the cases rising in the United States, and there's no stopping it at this point. There's no strategy that would stop the spread other than a vaccine. And so these vaccines are shown to be very effective with very minimal side effects. And when you think about the side effects, personally, I'm receiving none so far. I have my arm was a little sore, but nothing that by any stretch of the imagination, I don't even notice it right now, other than the fact that I knew that I was given the shot, and so other than that, it's one of those things where we need to get back to some sense of normal, and this is the only path forward at this point. And not only is it the only path forward, but it's shown to have good efficacy. 95%. That's a really effective vaccine. What we're showing so far is great success. And when you look at what COVID can do to you, it can kill you. Even a healthy person. Statistically speaking, it doesn't happen that much in healthy young individuals, but it does happen. But the flip side of that coin is that for elders that have complications, there is a high likelihood of severe complications, hospitalization, and sadly death. And so here in Red Lake, we have over 1,000 people that have complications, that are elders, that have health conditions that may complicate having COVID. And so we got to do it. And today we were meeting with the IHS Admiral, in fact, and we're doing our best as a tribal council to get these doses here in the community. And once we have them here, it's important that everyone takes it. And it's not just about you. It's about an entire community. It's about our elders. It's about those that have those health conditions. We got to protect them. And the only way we do that is by getting everyone to buy into this philosophy that the vaccine is the answer, because it is the only answer that's on the table right now. And if we expect to get to normalcy, we're going to have to take it, and we're going to have faith in the medical system that we have in front of us.
So you got the vaccine today along with Treasurer Annette Johnson, Chairman Daryl Seekey, Representatives Martin and Nelson?
In Pemberton.
In Pemberton.
Correct.
Martin and Pemberton. So obviously you don't get, you get, it's not like you get the vaccine and back to normal, no mask.
Right.
After you got the vaccine, what did the doctors and nurses encourage you guys to do afterwards?
So what they're telling us is that even after the first shot of the vaccine, it really isn't effective until 2 weeks have passed. And then we're going to get our second dose in 3 weeks, 21 days. And it's really not until a couple weeks after that second dose that 95% efficacy really takes into effect. And so even after that, there's still a lot of unknowns as to whether you can get it and have a very mild symptom and still pass it on. And so they're saying you still wear the masks, still practice social distancing, all the things that we've started to do. However, what it does do is it prevents you from having a severe complication of COVID. It prevents you from getting really sick, being hospitalized. And for those that have those complications, it could prevent you from dying. And so, for me, it's a no-brainer. And I'm really glad that they gave us the opportunity to lead by example. And I think, there is side effects. I haven't personally felt any, but they are saying within those trials that some of the people had headaches and slight fever, other complications. But when you look at what COVID can do to you compared to what this vaccine, some of these very short-term side effects, it's really it kind of boggles me sometimes to see all this anti-vaccine talk. It's not based in the best medical information we have out there. And I think it's important that we get the right message out there that, hey, vaccines don't solve the problem immediately, but it's a good start. Once we get a certain percentage of our population to have the vaccine, the risk will go down. We'll be able to get back to life as normal. I believe that we're in fact going to get our people vaccinated faster than the surrounding areas. Based on our current timelines, that's what I'm seeing. And so there is still that risk of transmitting it. We're very unsure about, the risk of transmission after getting the vaccine. But we are very certain so far that, if you get the vaccine, the risk of serious illness is extremely low. And so I'm a man that likes to study percentages. And from a percentage standpoint, it will lower our risk exponentially. It's going to save lives, and so the small effects that it may have. That, to be honest, I haven't felt any any adverse side effects. I think we got to have trust in the system, and we got to look outside ourselves too. We got to recognize that, for me, it's my father. For you, it might be your father, your grandparents, or it might be someone that's younger that has health issues. We got to think about them, and we got to get back to that place as a nation where we're considering the well-being of all of our people. And part of that will be taking the vaccine to protect our entire community.
I feel like a lot of your words right now echo what scientists and medical professions have been saying the entire time. And for the community who follows the direction of science and the medical professionals, it's a no-brainer. It's the thing we should do to, of course, protect ourselves, but even think bigger picture to protect others. Right. So let me throw a hypothetical at you. Let's say the vaccine is a government-controlled conspiracy. Have you ever seen I Am Legend?
Yes.
After you become, a vaccine zombie, and will you still be the secretary of the tribe, or will you have to run in an election that only the zombie population who took the vaccine can vote for?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Thomas. I appreciate the insight that you brought to that particular question. I mean, the reality is, there's no real severe side effects of this vaccine. In your hypothetical world, yeah, I'm still secretary.
Okay. So we'll just have to have a vaccine zombie as our tribal secretary. In that situation.
In your hypothetical situation, yeah, we'll say that I'll remain secretary.
Recently, the tribe has taken on a new project that I'm really interested in, and I know you've been a part of the discussions and the planning part of it. And it's from what I know it as, it's the Red Lake Nation Medical Cannabis Project. Could you give us a little bit of details and early information on this project and what it could mean for the tribe?
Yeah, very much so. And so I think a lot of people are very excited about this opportunity. And from our standpoint, this is about creating medical solutions for issues that our people may have. And for a lot of us, we have PTSD, we have health, issues with pain arising from health conditions. We have emotional trauma. We have seizures. There's so many different health conditions that have been shown to be bettered by cannabis. And so from our standpoint, the current pharmaceutical industry looks at getting people dependent upon these medications that oftentimes have very severe side effects. Now, you want to talk about side effects. The side effects from this vaccine are nothing compared to the stuff that we put in our bodies on a daily basis, straight out of that hospital. A lot of the pain medications are highly addictive, and our people have really suffered as a result of people becoming dependent on pain pills and other pharmaceutical really traps that they put our people in. I hate to say it in that way. There are some good uses of medicine, and I don't mean to minimize those, but the reality is the pharmaceutical industry has really taken advantage of our people. And when it comes to pain management, there's a huge lawsuit currently ongoing because doctors were more than willing to get our people dependent upon very addictive opioids. And so, from my standpoint, it's an opportunity for us to look at a more holistic way to deal with these different ailments that our people may have. And it's a way for us to provide the medicine at a subsidized cost. And so by the tribe taking on this initiative, it will allow us to provide medicine to our people at a rate that isn't going to take advantage of the people. And so getting medicine to the people, getting help to somebody is incredibly important, but also doing it in a way that isn't trying to take advantage of our people. and really adding to these economic disparities that we see in our community. And so that's really important. I think in the long term, we have an opportunity to create jobs. We have an opportunity to export and be a part of the medical cannabis revolution that we're seeing in the United States as well as Minnesota. And so that's really exciting. And I think, you could look at it from an economic development standpoint. But to me, it's more about how do we get people off of opioids? How do we get people off these hard drugs that are really destroying our community? And it's been shown that cannabis can do that. It's not as addictive as opioids, and it helps people basically come off of these hard drugs. And so for me, my interest is how do we help heal our people in a way that is subsidized by the government, done with strict controls and done in the right way, but also just looking at their holistic lives too. With the proper medication, someone can start to look at some of their mental health issues. They can start to live a normal life again and begin to turn around that entire family's outlook. And so that is what interests me the most. I think you can look at the economic opportunities, the long-term opportunity to be a part of the national and state answers when it comes to cannabis. But for me, more than anything, it's how do we get our people off these hard drugs? How do we get people starting to look at how to better their own lives? And I think there's a lot of research that shows that cannabis can be a huge part of that solution. And I think for Red Lake, it's a huge opportunity for us to do it right, to do it in a way that creates access. And by access, I mean, very subsidized production that goes directly to our people to solve some of the issues that they might be faced with.
Yeah, when you look at states like Colorado and Washington and the other states that have, in the recent past have, decriminalized marijuana and legalized it essentially, and you look at studies that show opioid addiction rates have gone down, drug overdoses from opioids have gone down significantly, suicide rates have gone down, the economy has gone up, jobs have gone up because of this market. And when you think about those topics and issues that I just brought up, those are things that are issues we have here in our reservation. The suicide, the drug epidemic. So if there is a plan that could, help better those issues, it's like something that everybody in our community should get behind. And I say that only in that context because I know there's always been this whole kind of propaganda that weed is a drug and that weed is like this really bad thing. And, when I should have said cannabis, medical cannabis, sorry. It's like, you could make that argument and everything has its limits. You could abuse, you eat too much cheeseburgers, you drink too much pop, you take too much painkillers, So it's like there's things that we accept that are already distributed and that are not healthy for us, and yet when it comes to cannabis, it's always like this reefer madness thought that's been propaganda through the whole country for a long time. So I hope more people who have those type of feelings are more open to the idea that this could create real positive change, and a bonus to it is it could improve our economy and create jobs.
Right.
So I'm really interested in it, in the project, and I look forward to seeing it grow. And, major shout out to everybody who's been a part of the planning project and people in the past who have, brought this up, because this is something that's been a long time coming. This isn't a discussion that, just started a few months ago when you guys brought it up at a council meeting. People have been, talking about this and throwing the idea around, probably for decades. So
very much so. It's
cool to see that this administration is helping push that into the future for our nation. Very awesome. So something else that's going on right now that I know you have a lot of ideas and you have a lot of feelings and thoughts about is the current Line 3 tar sands oil project going on in Minnesota. And us as a nation, we've you guys as a tribal council have made multiple resolutions opposing it, You have members of the council who have openly opposed it and who have actually supported water protectors and programs and nonprofits that are in support of protecting Minnesota's wildlife, waters, and environment. So right now it's at a stage where the pipeline is being constructed in areas of Minnesota. As a member of the Red Lake Nation who has treaty rights here in Minnesota and as one of our elected officials, what are your thoughts on the Line 3 project, and how is Red Lake going to continue to be involved in helping oppose this project?
Yeah, and so we've been opposed to Line 3 from the start. You know, as you spoke to before, there's multiple resolutions we've passed in opposition. And most recently, we in fact passed a resolution at the last tribal council meeting to create a more active protest towards the construction of Line 3. You know, we've appealed the decisions that have allowed for construction to start, and we've resisted through the legal path from day one. And sadly, we've been not heard, you know, and it's really sad to see that. However, you know, there's still an opportunity for a more active protest against the construction of Line 3. And so that's what the last resolution we passed was to actually have support our tribal members in creating a protest site where we can exercise our treaty rights within the corridor of Line 3. And we would provide support, may it be through resources or legal support, for those tribal members that want to actively protect our treaty rights, protect Mother Earth. And so we're in the process of doing that right now. I know we've had these discussions, and I'm sure people will hear more about this in the near future. But, you know, it's really sad that the courts didn't hear us, that our rights were not considered, and that our environment is going to be destroyed by this Line 3. It's going to impact our children and our children's children for generations and generations, and it's really unfortunate that this Canadian company has put so much pressure on U.S. governmental agencies to allow them to profit off the destruction of our land. And so I'm in direct opposition to this, and I intend on participating in this protest and helping to protect our water, our land, our animals. And so you'll see me out there, and we'll be talking more about that in the near future here, and how we can pull our people together and in a legal manner, under our rights, protect the things that our ancestors gave to us to protect. And so I'm very interested in getting more people involved. Again, this will be a tribal member initiative. And so our protest site will be Red Lake tribal members exercising their treaty rights. And so I think from that standpoint, you know, it's not ideal. The ideal situation would be that the courts recognize our longstanding treaty rights, and that this Line 3 will impact those treaty rights adversely. But with that not being heard, we have to physically get out there and in a legal way, in a way that doesn't destroy Mother Earth more than it's being destroyed, in a way that's respectful to all parties involved, in a way that's respectful to our traditions and to our legacy of protecting our land and our natural resources. We're going to do it the right way. We're going to do it in a way that I think will be heard, and I'm hoping that we're able to protect Mother Earth. That's the least we can do.
You're right, and it's important for people who are invested or know about this Line 3 issue going on in Minnesota, is that it's not people who are against people who work on the pipeline. It's not people who just don't like people who are welders and who work for a company, like Enbridge, who builds pipelines. It's the Anishinaabe of this area are simply doing what we have done for centuries, which is take care of our environment. We're one with the land. Nobody owns the land. We live here with it, and our water, we've always been told since a young age, is like our relative. That's why we have our water ceremonies and we make offerings. So, and another big thing for Anishinaabe people in Minnesota is our monomen, is our wild rice. The wild rice is woven into our culture. There's prophecies that our people would find the food that grows on the water, and that would be our new home. And that prophecy meant the wild rice, and here we are. And this tar sand pipeline goes through more than 54 wild rice beds that people gather wild rice at. So this pipeline directly affects our culture and our way of life. And it goes through the Mississippi River twice. Another misconception about this pipeline is that, it's going to lower gas prices because that oil is from Minnesota. And yet, all of the oil that's going to be pumped through this pipeline is being exported out of the country. None of it stays here. So when they say the economic boost from it is really temporary pipeline welding jobs.
Right.
And from people that I know in these different areas, because I got people in Thief River and Red Lake Falls and Palisade and all these places where the line's going through, and they're seeing these man camps develop with trucks that have Texas plates and Virginia plates, West Virginia, North Carolina. They're bringing in workers.
They're bringing in COVID.
They're bringing in workers who possibly are bringing in COVID
Right.
from out of state. So, what's the beef? What's up with all this talk of we're going to give jobs to Minnesotans, yada, 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 which me and you both know is propaganda just to trying to sell this pipeline. It's a Canadian company who is just, what I'm getting at is it's a very unnecessary project.
For Minnesota, it has no benefit other than the very short-term benefit of employing a couple people. But let me tell you this. The biggest industry in northern Minnesota is tourism. And the way that we drive tourism is because we have some of the most pristine land in the entire world. And so we're threatening that. The biggest industry that in fact provides the most number of jobs is our environment. And so for us to make a decision that allows this pipeline to be built in the biggest resource we have that benefits a Canadian company that's exporting this oil internationally, it is somewhat ridiculous.
Very ridiculous.
And, it really astounds me that we've allowed it to get this far. I had more faith in our court system, in our governance to oppose this. And sadly, for whatever reason, that hasn't happened, and we got to take matters into our own hands. And when I say that, let me throw this caveat out there. Let's do it the right way, though. Let's make sure it's about the message. Because when people start to, protest in violent ways, or when people protest in the wrong way, people are able to shift the message away from what's wrong onto the more apparent issues of that day that may have been caused. And so it's important that we do that. The message is we are stewards of this land, and it behooves all of us, native and non-native, to protect the best resource that we have for our communities to provide good jobs for the future. And this pipeline is threatening that. And it's as simple as that. It doesn't benefit us. It only benefits foreign actors, and it's going to hurt us. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the history of these tar sands oils going through these pipelines is that there's going to be breaks. There along the lines there's these pinhole breaks that happen, and there's slow contamination. And sadly, the same company has a history of large breaks.
The largest inland oil spill happened right here in this state, and near Grand Rapids. The line 3, the old line 3 that is currently still pumping oil, ruptured and spilled 1.7 million gallons of oil, desecrating and destroying wetlands for miles of radius where it spilled. Yeah. So to say that they have a history of spillage is an understatement. And it happened, the largest inland in American history right here in this state.
Yeah.
And that same company wants to build an even bigger tar sands oil pipeline to send it through not only the tourism in our pristine environment, but northern Minnesota has some of the cleanest and healthiest water in the world. And that, I don't know if people are grasping how important clean water is in this world. The population of people are growing in this world, and the amount of clean, healthy water is decimating. And so yet here we are putting another barrier on that issue, putting another obstacle where we could possibly threaten. Like I said earlier, it goes through the Mississippi River twice. The Mississippi River houses water for over 20 million people, and yet we want to throw a tar sand pipeline through it right here at the head of the Mississippi in Minnesota.
Yeah,
It's unnecessary project.
Yeah, this oil, the nature of the tar sands oil is that it's highly volatile. And so it's not a matter of when or of if, it's a matter of when, right? And, that's the sad truth. I hate to be the realist sometimes, but that's what it is. And, it's not an economic decision. If you look at all the factors and look at the true impact to our economy, it really astounds me that we've allowed it to get this far. And as a Anishinaabe Red Laker, we got to do what we can to protect it. Again, let's come together. Let's do it the right way. Let's get our message heard, and let's protect our land and Mother Earth. That's all we can do. And the reality is, it's going to be a huge obstacle to overcome. By no stretch of the imagination is this going to be an easy endeavor, but we got to do it. It's in our history. Yeah, we got to do it.
So I want to say miigwech to you and the other members of the tribal council who have continuously expressed your opposition to this project for the sake of our treaty rights, for our water, and for our environment. For people watching this, to get involved in any kind of way, follow the Facebook pages, Honor the Earth, Stop Line 3, GNU Collective, MN350, Minnesota Coalition. Those are Facebook pages that have been continuously posting videos, information, pictures, and updates on the current battle. And they have visit the website www.stopline3.org to learn more about the issue, the topic, and ways that you could help right from home by simply making a small or any size donation to the cause so we could help our water protectors on the front lines. Big shout out to Winona, Nancy, and Tara, everybody in GNU, and the Rise Coalition, everybody in Honor the Earth, Sarah, who have been out in Palisade. Keep up the good work. And this is a call. If you're watching this, you want to get involved, water protectors are needed. Visit those Facebook sites that I mentioned and figure out how you can get involved.
And we're going to need Red Lake water protectors too. And so keep us in mind. You can follow my Facebook, Thomas's Facebook, and I'm sure we'll be putting out more information on our Red Lake initiative to protect our 1863 treaty territory.
Yes, follow Red Mike Podcast and my Thomas X page and Sam's secretary page on Facebook for updates on the Red Lake encampment to oppose Line 3. So, you've been secretary for 2 years, roughly 2 years now.
Yeah.
And you've accomplished some pretty big feats in your short time in office, and some really game changers, to say the least. And one of them being the Enrollment Resolution that revolves around changing blood quantum, which and blood quantum is a whole nother can of worms. It's a different conversation. But what your administration did was you made changes that don't necessarily change things forever, but it changes things for now. And what most people have expressed in a good way, because we have hundreds of people who live in our community of Red Lake. And because of this Chimokumon system of blood quantum, cannot be enrolled into their home. They don't have their full identity by not being enrolled here. I have family members who were in that predicament. You guys did your homework, due diligently for months, had a lot of extra workers and people involved in the process, and you learned what most of us already knew, that we wanted change to blood quantum as a system as far as how we enroll our community members into Red Lake. And you guys made that happen. And I feel like there's like a lot of people who aren't fully aware of what this does, and what it means. If there was like some information you'd want to get out there to the people and to anybody who wants to learn about this change in enrollment, what would you want to tell them?
Yeah, well, it's a big topic. Let me tell you that. It's something that one of the reasons I ran for secretary was because I saw how we were oppressing our own people and how we were setting ourselves up for long-term failure. And the easiest way to explain blood quantum is that it was a termination policy of the federal government. And this termination policy was aimed at terminating the Red Lake Band of Chippewa Indians, at terminating our people. And in fact, when we analyzed our demographics, that was what was going to happen. And so by no means does this solve our problem forever. It's a good start. That's the way it was explained to our community, and that's what I would say to anyone that wants further change is that, we started to look at the change, and we did that by increasing the base roll, making everyone on our base roll a full blood. And so what that did was it increased people's quantum down the line. And really it just prevented that termination from happening immediately. It just put that off into the future. And so we do need to make more changes in the future, changes that allow us to be here forever, allows our children and our children's children to have faith that our tribe will be here forever, that we'll be here to protect our land, to protect our way of life, and enrollment is what allows us to do that. Without a change in enrollment, we're going to start losing population. We were already starting to see our numbers diminish. We were seeing that 75% of our people were 50% and below. And what that means is we were on a cliff. And once we started going off that cliff, those numbers were going to decrease dramatically. And the reality is, these are our people, And I think that's the hard part. There has been some animosity about the decision. And I think that the hardest part about that is that, I think about the people that are newly enrolled and I think, what did they do wrong? They did nothing wrong. They were born as they were. And many of these people are very prideful in their history. They speak the language. There are language teachers. And the other thing is that we've started to think about our own people as dependents. They're going to take this and they're going to take that. And we need to start thinking of our people as assets, because that's what they are. In today's world, we don't have warriors on the battlefield. We may have some that are in the army and so on and so forth, but the warriors of today are the teachers, the doctors, the psychiatrists, all the people that make our society function. The people that work at DNR to protect our natural resources, the policemen that actually protect our streets. And our people are our biggest resource. And we need to change that mentality and see our own people as a strength, because that's what we are. We're strong together. And the more people we have, the stronger we are as a nation. And it's important that we maintain this lineage as well. If it wasn't such a bad problem today, why can't we wait a little bit longer? Because then these traditions, the language, all these things that make us who we are will be lost. And so we need to reconnect these people to our identity. And we need to do it now. Doing it in the future would actually harm us. It would create a loss of culture, just bringing someone into the tribe without that intricate knowledge of their culture, language, and history. It would actually harm us. And so it's important that we keep these lineages alive. And that's what that first change was aimed to do. And in the future, we'll need to make more changes to maintain our descendants. And that's why we're looking at descendancy as the long-term solution. And I think it was the right way to do it, especially seeing some of the negative connotations. Slow change is oftentimes more accepted. But the reality is, every one of these new members is the greatest asset. And if they're not being an asset, then it's on us as a nation to provide more structure to make all of our people a contributing asset to what we are as a nation. And I believe in that. I believe in every one of our people. And I believe every one of us has a role in carrying this nation forward. And, we're seeing it on a day-to-day basis, and now the positive side of it, man, just seeing the joy in some of these children, I'll use this as an example. At the last tribal council meeting, a grandmother came up to us and she said, I just want to thank you guys. I want to thank you because when my grandchild was enrolled, I was able to get custody of them. And by getting custody of this child, this was an off-reservation situation, she was able to protect that child from losing their identity. And she was able to protect that child and give them the hope that they need to thrive in their life. Across the board, I've heard so many great stories of people that just want to be a part of this nation and want to be a contributing member of our society. And I know your story, and I hope you don't mind, but, your family member is a great asset, and she will continue to be a great asset, and it's really ridiculous that we were at a point where people were living in our community, they were going to our school, they were doing their best to be a good part of this nation, and we weren't recognizing that. And it's important that we change that mentality, and we see that blood quantum was a government-imposed philosophy to terminate us. And we may have internalized that process, and we may have thought that was our own, but by perpetuating blood quantum, you were directly creating for the termination of our tribe. And for me, it made the decision a lot easier to proceed because I couldn't be a part of that. Seeing the history and seeing where the people were at and looking at the numbers and the potential for us, diminishing over time, I could not be a part of a government-imposed philosophy of termination. And I think it's important that people recognize that's what blood quantum is. It was never talked about in our communities, never once. It was about our way of life and continuing that. And we need to do a better job at that. Let me tell you that. It's on us as a government and as a tribe to better educate our people on our history, our culture, our language, and what it means to be a Red Laker. But by no means is that an individual's fault. That's a collective thing that we need to do as a people to get to a better place. But blood quantum is not us. Blood quantum is a government-imposed termination policy. And I continue to say that because if we didn't change it, we were going to be a part of our own oppression. And I couldn't stand by and see that anymore. And I'm glad that the people were in a good place. And the reality is, when we surveyed all the people, when we took the time to send all these pamphlets out, people want change. And I think it's important to recognize that just changing blood quantum, that's not the only answer. And I think that's an important part of this picture too, is that we have to come back to a place that helps us teach all of us what it means to be a Red Laker, what it means to be a part of our society. That's the most important thing we can do. And so when we do that, I think a lot of the negative things will go away because we'll see that we're stronger as a nation and our people are the greatest strength. And, I'm really thankful for all the support and the really positive stories from children and people that have been waiting their whole lives to be recognized for being a part of this great nation. I know me and you were born into it, and we didn't know any different. But for those that are given that help and that identity, it's really empowering, and it's really the best part of my job to see the benefit of changing people's lives. And to me, it's more than just that. It's setting ourselves up to always be here, to be a steward of what we were given. It's making sure that we have an unbroken line of people that are prepared to be warriors here in Red Lake forever.
You're absolutely right that it brings a lot of joy and pride to people because it's like a big boost to their identity, and identity is who we are. And I love your words about our people are our biggest resource, because that's what people got to remember when it comes to this enrollment resolution, is that we wanted to empower and give identity to people who were already here. There's so many people living in providing and like, bringing like positive assets to our community. And my family member who you're speaking of is my niece Elizabeth Barrett, and she's a positive asset because she was a valedictorian of the class of 2017. She's lived here her whole life out in Little Rock, and she's the first high school graduate to be accepted into an Ivy League school. And when she graduated and was accepted into an Ivy League school, she wasn't an enrolled member, but yet she grew up here her whole life. And the resolution that you and your team and the tribal council were able to pass gave her the opportunity to give her her true identity. And now we have an enrolled member of the Red Lake Nation about to graduate this summer from Dartmouth University.
Amazing.
And my good friend, my Niji, Alex Komet, I met him when I was at University of Minnesota Morris. He's like a lot of us. He's a light-skinned Niji. A person who was like, he's a young man, but he has an old soul. And he was studying Ojibwe language and indigenous studies. And even when I met him 10 years ago, he was already pretty knowledgeable of the language of Ojibwe Mo'in. And now he's a fluent speaker, and we're the same age. And he teaches Ojibwe language. And just last month or 2 months ago, he made a post on Facebook about how he became an enrolled member of the Red Lake Nation. And he told the story about how his grandma is from Obashing. If your grandparents are from Obashing, you should automatically be enrolled in Red Lake.
Yeah.
And just right there, by doing this resolution, we gained members who are Ivy League school graduates, who are fluent Ojibwe speakers. Marcus Tyler has been a fluent speaker in teaching our kids language, the language. He is now an enrolled member. Like, ever since it happened, I've been seeing people post their papers on Facebook and, posting their kids, and it's like they're so happy and so prideful about it. And that makes me feel good because, me and you both got Red Lake pride running through our blood. So to see other people being proud of that in that way, it's like that is like so empowering, and it's just the tip of the iceberg that's going to create positive change. So the long term of what you're saying. So again, miigwech for your guys' work on making that happen, because it was a good thing. It was a powerful thing, and it's going to benefit us for a long time.
Yeah, and let me say this too. The best part of my job is that I'm just a part of this nation, and by no means is it my thing. No means is it your thing. It's just something that we all needed to change. And so my one thing about moving forward, we all talk about moving forward. I think it's important to recognize that there's still more changes that we need to make to solidify our permanent future. And so it's important that we all step up and speak for what's right. And it's not to speak down upon people that don't believe in changing enrollment. And that's another thing I want to say too. By no means should we oppress ourselves further by diminishing their viewpoints, because I do think there's some valid viewpoints about identity and making sure that people know what it means to be a Red Laker. I think there's a lot of value in that talk too, and so I don't mean to diminish anyone that might think otherwise, because they're still a member of our nation and we need to come together. But the one thing that I do want to say is that, stand up for what's right, stand up for the truth, and stand up for what our ancestors would want. And that is that we protect this land that we've been given forever, that we protect our way of life, our language, our culture, and our identity forever. And we need people to do that. We need our people to do that. And so stand up for those that, may not be heard. Stand up for what's right. And our people did show that. And let me say that, that's why we were able to make the change. When we did those surveys, when we worked with our communities, we were 90% of our people were in favor of doing the change. And so the reality is our people are behind it. Let's stand up for what's right. But let's also take time to listen to those that want to promote our culture and identity. I think there's some truth to that as well. We can't let go of that part of our identity. Being a Red Laker on paper is such a small part of the entire picture. And so let us remember that, for this to work in the long term, not only do we have to have people, but we also need to maintain our identity, and we need to make sure that all of our members are cognizant of what it means to be a Red Laker, what it means to be a part of this great lineage that we have in Red Lake of being protectors, of being stewards of Mother Earth and being stewards of our way of life. And so I want to say that too, it's important that we come together, we recognize our strengths, and that we're respectful of everyone's viewpoint. But by no means should that mean that you shouldn't stand up. But do it in a respectful way, and do it in a way that brings people together and that empowers us to really take a hold of our future and look to these future generations as the people that our ancestors saw us to be, which is the protectors of Red Lake Nation.
Yeah, definitely, man. You're absolutely right. We have to, there's no easy way to put it. We have to improve the way we teach the next generations, all our members of Red Lake history, our culture, our language. We have to empower our language warriors who are learning, who are teaching. We have to make changes in the school system. We got to make changes as a community, how much resources and financial resources we put towards empowering our culture and language. There's a whole nother can of worms of how that needs to change and how we could go about it. And so that's really important to bring up, that with this change in enrollment, we have to remember why we did it, and we have to remember that we as a nation have to improve. It starts from every single member on and off the reservation, residents, that we have to continue to, our existence is resistance. Our existence is a powerful thing. And I like that you mentioned our ancestors, because, and what would they want? What would they want our people to do right now? And I know for sure that they would want us to do our best to empower ourselves and our community by remembering who we are, and, continue to teach and bring back the culture and language to a place where we'd like to see it. And you see it. You can see it out here. You can see it in the more language speakers and teachers. You can see it in the modernization of way we're teaching the kids. It's happening. And
there's a lot of amazing things happening in our community, and I think sometimes we see some of the hard things, because there's hard things going on within our community too. But I like to celebrate our successes, and across the board, you talked about some of that work, the language work, our immersion school, the changes within the school system, and really our people stepping up and being the leaders that we all are. And so I think that's the most empowering part of being a part of tribal government, is seeing people coalesce and get behind these really important issues. And, if there's one thing that I can say that I really appreciate, is I appreciate all of our people, and I appreciate all of their viewpoints. And I think it's really important that we always recognize that we are as strong as we are as one nation, and being respectful to one another, and starting a good dialogue. And it's okay to have different viewpoints too. That doesn't mean we all have to think the same. But those core foundational values of culture, language, and identity, those are true amongst all of us. And we all want to protect Mother Earth. And I think that's a really different thing than you would see in the rest of, the Minnesota and the United States, is that we are protectors of Mother Earth. We all believe in, our identity, our culture, our language, and there's a lot of strength in that. And so let's get behind these commonalities, and but also be respectful of people's differences. I think that's an important part of growing as a nation, and I think we're getting there.
I think, an example of that is the most recent tribal council meeting I was at, and I raised the topic of setting up the Line 3 encampment and, getting the council's backing on the issue. And, there were some people who were talking, and we were basically on the other sides of the fence on the issue. I was on one side of how I felt, and they expressed how they felt, and we expressed our differences and what we thought and our feelings on the issue, and what they were saying, it was tough to hear. But when we were done talking, and the council voted yes to give the support, I went up to those two gentlemen and I shook their hand, because they're both members of Red Lake, and and they're people who have had conversations and worked with them on different things, and just so to echo what you're saying about having different viewpoints but still being members of the Red Lake Nation, that's like one way we could possibly do it. Agree to disagree,
Right.
but continue to think, how could we still work together to empower our community?
Yeah, and the one thing I can say is that I believe with all my heart that those two individuals do believe in protecting what we were given. They might have a different approach to it, but the reality is every one of us as Red Lakers, it's born in our blood, in our soul, to be a part of this lineage of protecting Red Lake. And it's something special. It really is. And I love being a part of that. There's nothing better than to be a part of something that has been happening for centuries upon centuries, and just being a part of that, and being a part of not only bringing the people together, but being a part of looking towards the future and thinking about my daughter and thinking about our children. How can we set the table for them to live an even better life than what we were given? And really, there's a lot of strength in this identity that we have as Red Lakers. And so it's really empowering to give that to people. And it's really empowering to see that strength in our identity. And if there's one thing that I can do in this life, it is carry on who we are. If I can accomplish just that, even on a small scale, I think my life will be, I will see a lot of success from that. And I will feel fulfilled by really accomplishing that.
Absolutely, bro. You guys have done some great work in the Secretary's office. And one thing I like about you guys' administration is your teamwork and your ability to grow as a team and leaders, because even it don't matter what the political spectrum is, people have different viewpoints, but if you guys can still come together as a common team and represent the people, it benefits everybody, and I've seen you guys do that a lot. So what is the name of your Facebook page, your secretary page?
You can either check my personal page, it's just Sam Strong on Facebook, or Tribal Secretary Sam Strong.
Tribal Secretary Sam Strong.
Yeah. And, I also am available if you reach out to the government center here, 218-679-3341. I'm always open to hearing people's viewpoints or issues. And you'll be surprised, actually. I spend a lot of time talking to people about viewpoints that may differ from mine. And you know what? Sometimes I'm wrong too. We all have a chance to grow. And so I really relish the opportunity to hear everyone's viewpoints, and we're all on this path of life. None of us are perfect, and the reality is, the more we can do to be open-minded, the more we can do to listen to all of our tribal members, the stronger we're going to be. And so I think this is a really cool idea you have of promoting people's voices here on your podcast. And so I'm excited to finally be a guest of yours, and I'm excited for the future here. I think we have a really exciting chance to pull our people together through this hard time. And I think, unlike the rest of the world, I think we are really cognizant of our elders and the risks that they're going through right now with COVID. And I have nothing but faith that we're going to come together. We're going to protect our elders. We're going to protect our community. We're going to see the good in the vaccine. We're going to see the good in coming together to protect those that may be less fortunate. And I only have faith here. The reality is I've seen what has happened all over this nation, and it's really it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch us go down this path. But at the same time, I believe that we are the leaders of not only our own people, but the leaders of the world. And it's only a matter of time before the people get behind this mentality of the community as a whole and thinking of their health. And not only the community, but Mother Earth as a piece of that puzzle. And I think if we're going to change the tides of some of these global issues, such as global warming, et cetera, we're going to have to be the leaders that show the rest of the world this is how we get it done. And I think this pandemic has given us an opportunity to show the rest of the world, here, hey, this is a good example. Come together, do what's best for the entire community. And not only that, let's take it to the next level when we talk about environmentalism and really understanding the long-term implications of damaging the environment around us. I think we can be stewards of the earth and teach all of humanity how to push humanity into the right direction so our children and their children's children will have a healthy environment and a stable environment to live in.
Absolutely. It's been proven over time in recent history. It's been indigenous-led movements and organizations that have paved the way for what we're seeing as, the new environmental revolution, where we're more conscious of it. The everyday person is more aware of the effects of climate change and the rising in temperatures, the rising of the sea levels, and how important things like water and things like what trees do for our environment and what the certain animals do in our wildlife. So it's you're absolutely right when it comes to it's going to be the indigenous that send a message to the masses. Mother Earth is a part of us, and she's very important, and we got to take care of her so we can take care of future generations. So again, to everybody, I encourage everybody listening, get involved, and at the very least, learn about the Line 3 issue going on in Minnesota right now, and let's get involved in helping our water protectors out there. Maniji, it's been a really awesome podcast. It feels good to have the podcast back. We've been on about a good 8-9 month hiatus, so I want to bring Red Mike back to the masses. Appreciate all the work you've been doing. Keep up the good work, and I hope you don't turn into a vaccine zombie.
The good news is I'm feeling pretty good, so I think we missed that one.
So far, Secretary Strong is not a vaccine zombie.
So far I'm feeling pretty good.
This is Red Mike Podcast, everybody. Miigwech for tuning in. Follow Red Mike Podcast on Facebook, and also follow my page, Thomas X, and Red Lake Tribal Secretary Sam Strong. Miigwech for coming to the podcast, Niji.
Yeah, Miigwech for asking me on.
For show.
Nah, I'll get.
Wrong one.
Really ace.
Which one am I trying
You think you're bad or what?
to... There we go. I was trying to find this one.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Red Mike Podcast.
I like that. I think you're bad or what?